We've, I just don't see how instilling this worldview in people or having this worldview brings you any kind of happiness or peace
Yeah,
or joy or enables you to just get on with people and just see people as people and have friends from different groups and ethnicities. And for
that's right.
people who are always screaming about diversity, inclusion, and tolerance, they're extremely homogenized,
Yeah,
exclusive,
yeah,
and intolerant, and
yeah.
it's quite amazing.
I would add, by the way, in my own sphere of particular knowledge, they still haven't produced any readable books.
Oh,
I
geez, no.
mean, it is very striking. I mean, the impression is given that if you double down on all this stuff, focus on it endlessly, we are all freer in some way. I think we're being restricted
Yeah.
in massive ways.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, I give this example in The Madness of Crowds that, you know, there are writers in this generation who undoubtedly write worse than writers of a previous generation, despite being in a freer situation.
Mm.
Because in some ways, the whole social justice agenda is as boring and rigid and restrictive as any dogma in history.
Hmm.
And, you know, and I particularly mind it when people say about fiction writers, there's been this push that my colleague Lionel Shriver has been particularly strong against. There's push to say you shouldn't write characters in a novel that aren't from
Oh,
your background. And
yeah, yeah.
I think, don't you dare restrict what any man or woman can write in a novel. Don't you dare try to do that.
Hmm.
This is the human imagination in one of its best playpens.
Yeah.
Don't tell people what to do when they're in it.
Hmm.
And certainly don't do it if the stuff that you'd point to is so damn boring as the perfect the perfect thing at the end of that.
Yeah.
And I'm very struck by this, that we need to recognize that what we're being offered is not some kind of liberation theology. It's a deeply restrictive ideology,
It is.
which will restrict human interactions
Hmm.
as well as the human imagination and the ability of us to flourish.
Yeah, most definitely. I remember in the aftermath of the George Floyd protests when the voice actors of various cartoons
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
TV
yeah.
shows started saying that they won't voice cartoon character, literally,
Yeah, the guy from
literally
the
cartoon.
from The Simpsons suddenly like
Yeah,
caved.
yeah, Simpsons.
Yeah.
One of the guys who did the guy who voices Cleveland,
Right.
from the Cleveland show, because it's I think a white guy who voices a black guy, and he stepped down, and it's just again. I'm just like, who does this help? When they canceled Aunt Jemima, they wanted to get rid of Uncle.
That's right. That's right.
I'm,
That's
I'm,
right. I know.
I'm just like, how is this helping anybody, let alone a black person, and which black people wanted this? Like,
Right. Well, also,
who
by
wanted
the way,
this?
I mean, the whole thing, first, exactly who wanted this? And also, isn't it fascinating that like, every culture has things that from the outside might look a bit weird. And like, you wouldn't want like, the Eye of Sauron, that is the internet, to just sort of fixate on.
Yeah.
Like, there's lots of comedy, there's lots of thinking, there's lots of books that are, I don't know, they have things which you wouldn't want everyone in the world to focus on. Um, uh, I mean, I see it all the time in literature. You sort of think, oh God, I hope they don't land on that because that book's really good, and the fact that that sentence exists in it, I hope they don't find it, or that
Yeah.
book will be cancelled. It's such a, but you see, the problem is though, is that it's this Eye of Sauron I identify is so strong that when it fixates on something, it does make everything scatter
Mhm.
when it alights on a subject. And it's just so strange that, as you say, it'll be like a syrup here, it'll be a rice here, and none of it solves any of the damn problems. And
Doesn't do
then
it.
everybody always in the society that has them sort of like, well, no one's bothered by that. Like we didn't have who was campaigning to stop the Simpsons voiceover guy being the wrong ethnicity? Like,
Yeah.
show me that person.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very weird. It's very weird, and it's so weird as well, just because. Look, I know, of course, just because something has happened or existed for a long time doesn't mean it should continue in that way. There's lots of examples where that's not the case. But
Sure.
I mean, the guy doing the voice of Apu in The Simpsons, he'd been doing that for over 20 years, and
Yeah.
well, okay, let me not say no one, virtually nobody ever found it offensive or found it problematic or whatever. Nobody was bothered by Aunt Jemima
Right.
smiling. There's nothing even. There wasn't even any sort of. It's not even like
Yeah.
she was some kind of caricature, and it's just a smiling woman on the bottle, and
Yeah.
then the decision that okay, we need to.
Well,
I don't
this
know.
is unfortunately all the big overcorrections of our era are led by totally inappropriate people.
Yeah.
I mean, if I say in the Madness of Crowds that if you wanted to change your sexual ethics between the sexes, I wouldn't start by doing Hollywood.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't start from the place that the term casting couch came from.
Yeah.
I wouldn't start there because it's highly unusual, highly atypical, and has a load of things built in that most ordinary bits of society do not have. It is the place that most rewards beauty
Sure.
in the entire planet. So don't start there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the sort of Me Too thing starts to go wrong because stupidly it gets fixated on that sort of thing rather than on more commonplace issues that could be addressed. And I think to an extent this happens with the racism issue as well, is that we get it in these really atypical situations, and we end up focusing on the bit that we can solve. Apu in The Simpsons, a bit of casting here. Like, again, Hollywood begging to be able to survive this era. I don't think the films in the newly diverse Oscars thing. By the way, the Oscars were pretty diverse in the past. If you look at the Best Picture winners, I don't think that we get better films if we have racial quotas. I don't think we do. I think all of it limits human accomplishment and the possibilities, the potential of it. I don't think The Godfather would have been. I don't think it could have been a better film, and I especially don't think it could have been a better film if some of the mob were like randomly black or like a white guy from Essex. I don't know. I don't think it would have been better.
I do not scam. Put some respect on my name. Sick like a